Get him out of my lobby, now. Curtis Whitmore said it loudly enough for the photographer to hear, loudly enough for the guests at the front desk to hear, and loudly enough for Sal Marchetti, kneeling beside the lobby fountain with a wrench in his hand, to understand the decision had already been made. The pump had been rattling for 2 days. Sal had stopped the noise before it became a flooded lobby, but Curtis was preparing a rebrand campaign, and all he could see was an old repairman in a tool belt against polished marble. "We are shooting the future of this hotel," Curtis said, "and you are on your knees in the middle of my lobby like this is 1987. "The fountain is fixed," Sal said. "That is not the point." Sal stood slowly. He was 68, with knees that had begun to protest long before this morning. "I have kept this hotel running for 34 years. And I appreciate the history," Curtis said. "But history is not what we are selling on Friday. You look like something we are trying to move past." Priscilla, the general manager, heard the sentence from the corridor. She did not intervene. Curtis had a way of making any public disagreement sound like proof that he had been right all along. "Clean out your locker," he said. "HR will send the paperwork." Sal did not argue. He put the wrench back in his belt and walked to the basement mechanical room. There was not much inside his locker. A photograph of Connie, spare gloves, an old radio, and 11 black notebooks filled with 34 years of observations. The official maintenance binder remained on the shelf beside the boiler. It belonged to the hotel. It listed service dates, vendors, equipment numbers, and basic schedules. Sal's notebooks were different. They held the details no checklist had captured. The sound the boiler made before a valve stuck, the elevator relay modification after an old recall, the freezer coil that needed an extra manual check in humid weather, the reminder that the backup generator had to be tested under real load. They were not secrets. They were the work of paying attention. Sal put them in a cardboard box, walked through the lobby one last time, and noticed that everything was quiet. The fountain, the revolving door, the warm lights over the desk. That was what good maintenance looked like. Nothing announcing itself. Curtis was on his phone near the concierge desk. He never looked up. Sal drove home with the box on the passenger seat. The next morning, at 9:20, 2 hotel guests became trapped in the elevator between the 3rd and 4th floors. One was a businesswoman late for a client call. The other was an elderly man traveling with his wife, who stood in the hallway outside the doors pressing the call button again and again. Inside the elevator, the businesswoman used the emergency intercom. "Front desk," Marcus answered. "How can I help?" "We are stuck between floors. There is an older gentleman in here with a pacemaker and he is getting anxious. Can someone get us out?" Marcus promised help immediately. Then he called maintenance. There was no maintenance department to call. Not really. Priscilla arrived within minutes, listened through the elevator doors, and called the fire department's non-emergency line for instructions. The guests were eventually guided out through the emergency release procedure. 20 minutes passed before the doors opened. Nobody was injured, but the man's wife had tears in her eyes when she thanked Priscilla. "Does this happen often?" she asked. "No," Priscilla said. It was not exactly a lie. It was new. Curtis received the report while reviewing a mock-up for the gala invitation. He called an emergency maintenance contractor who arrived at 10 with a rolling case of diagnostic equipment and the tired expression of someone who had already been called too late. The technician opened the control panel, studied the wiring, then went quiet. "This relay system was modified," he said. "Can you reset it?" Priscilla asked. "Maybe, but I would be guessing. The wiring does not match the manufacturer's diagrams, and whoever altered it did not leave a detailed service note in the binder." Priscilla looked at the official maintenance folder. It listed the date of the original recall, the vendor invoice, and a line that read, "Modified and stabilized." Nothing more. "What are our options?" she asked. "I can put the elevator on limited manual service with a technician present," he said. "Or I can replace the control system. That will take days, and the parts will not arrive before your event. Priscilla called Curtis. The person who understood this modification is not answering because you fired him yesterday, she said. Curtis closed his eyes for 1 second. That is not helpful, Priscilla. No, she said. It is not. Across town, Sal and Connie were at their kitchen table with the cardboard box still unopened by the door. He fired you over a fountain pump, Connie said. He fired me over how I looked fixing it. Sal had explained the public part only once. He did not have the energy to repeat it. Connie reached for his hand. 2 years, she said. 2 years, until his pension fully vested. 2 years until the retirement money he and Connie had planned around would become real. Their daughter Angela was a nurse 2 states away with a new baby and a mortgage. Connie worked part-time at a pharmacy, but her income had always been meant to help, not to carry them. I did the numbers on the drive home, Sal said. We will manage. It just changes the plan. Connie looked toward the box of notebooks. Then let the plan change, she said. Not you. At that moment, neither of them knew the hotel's first emergency had already begun. By noon, the walk-in freezer in the kitchen had begun climbing toward an unsafe temperature. Denise Okafor, the executive chef, noticed it because ice cream for a private lunch arrived soft at the edges. She checked the digital display, then opened the temperature log. For 6 years, Sal had initialed the sheet every morning. The last 2 entries were blank. Denise touched the inside wall of the freezer. It was warmer than it should have been. Move the dairy and proteins, she told her sous chef. Now, use the basement backup unit. The kitchen crew moved trays and shelves as quickly as they could. When they powered up the backup unit, it gave one rough click and stayed dark. Denise stared at it. Who tested this? Nobody answered. They did not need to. Everyone in the kitchen knew the answer. Priscilla was still dealing with the elevator when Denise called. She listened, then told the kitchen to use a rental cold truck until a repair company could arrive. That is already what we are trying to do, Denise said. But the rental company says the earliest truck is late afternoon. Curtis heard about the freezer at 4 o'clock. He was sitting in his office looking at floral arrangements for the gala. How much product? He asked. $6,000, maybe more, Denise said. And that is before we talk about food safety. Curtis looked up. Are you saying this is my fault? I am saying Sal caught a coil issue like this every month before it became an emergency. He never announced it. He just handled it. Curtis turned away from her. I need solutions. So did Sal, Denise said. That was what he was. Curtis left his office and walked the service corridor himself. Something he rarely did, unless a problem had already reached the guest areas. The elevator contractor was still in the basement, keeping the car on manual override. The refrigeration company had not yet arrived. Near the loading dock, 2 kitchen employees waited beside rolling carts of food, watching the temperature on the rental truck display. This is temporary, Curtis said to no one in particular. Priscilla followed him. Everything is temporary right now, she said. That is the problem. Curtis stopped outside the generator room. Why was none of this on a calendar? It was, Priscilla said. Just not on one anyone else knew how to read. Sal had been asking for a second person to train on the old systems since last fall. You called it an unnecessary expense. Curtis looked at the locked generator door. I did not say he should not document things. You did not say anyone should have time to do it either. For a moment, Curtis seemed close to hearing what she meant. Then a photographer from the rebrand team appeared at the far end of the corridor asking where to set up the new lobby lights for the evening. Curtis turned away from the generator room. Keep the event moving, he said. We cannot look unstable tonight. Priscilla watched him go. The hotel did not need to look unstable. It already was. At 6 that evening, Sal's phone rang. The caller ID showed the Belmont Hotel. He let it ring twice before answering. Sal, Priscilla said. Her voice was exhausted. I know I have no right to ask this after yesterday, but the elevator is down, the freezer is failing, and the backup unit did not come on. I have contractors here, but they do not know this building. Sal looked at Connie across the kitchen table. The official maintenance binder is still in the basement mechanical room, he said. It has vendor numbers, schedules, and the last service dates. They have it. It is not enough. No, Sal said. It was never meant to be enough by itself. That is why I kept telling Curtis we needed a transition plan before I retired. Priscilla went quiet. Would you come in? She asked. Just tonight. I can pay you whatever call-out rate you want. Not off the books, Sal said. No, of course not. If Curtis wants my help, he can request it in writing through HR. He can acknowledge that I was terminated without cause, and we can agree on a paid transition role with clear hours and clear responsibility. Sal, I am not trying to punish you, Priscilla. I am trying not to become the man who gets discarded on Wednesday and brought back for free on Thursday because nobody planned for what he knew. She did not argue. I understand, she said. I know you do. Take care of your people tonight. When he hung up, Connie did not tell him he had done the right thing. She knew he did not need permission. The next morning, Curtis received an email from HR summarizing Sal's conditions. It was professional, clear, and more humiliating than any angry message could have been. Curtis read it twice. Then he called Priscilla. We are not negotiating with a former maintenance worker over a weekend, he said. He is not negotiating. He is offering a transition process. We have contractors. We have contractors who cannot explain why the elevator does what it does, a freezer truck arriving after dinner service, and a generator test that has not been completed before a major event. Curtis looked at the schedule pinned to his wall. The gala was that evening. We are not canceling, he said. Priscilla waited for more. There will be no cancellation, Curtis repeated. Get the contractors to stabilize what they can. Keep the elevator on manual override. Make the event work. That afternoon, the hotel was held together by rented equipment, temporary wiring, and people who had been asked to do jobs they did not fully understand. The elevator moved only with a contractor standing by. The kitchen ran on a cold truck parked behind the loading dock. The fountain began rattling again, and Curtis ordered it unplugged rather than repaired. At 5 o'clock, an hour before guests arrived, Priscilla stood alone in the ballroom doorway and watched technicians run cables along the walls for the extra lighting rig. She looked toward the generator room at the end of the corridor. Has the backup been load tested? She asked one contractor. The man looked up. Not since we arrived, he said. We tested the emergency circuit. That is not what I asked. He hesitated. No. Priscilla picked up her phone. She started to call Curtis, then stopped. She had already told him. The gala began on time. Guests came in cocktail attire. Photographers took pictures in front of the new hotel backdrop. Investors Curtis had spent months courting moved through the lobby with champagne flutes in their hands. The branding consultant smiled at the flowers, the lighting, the new logo, and the way the cameras kept moving. Curtis stood at the ballroom podium just after 7:30. He spoke about transformation. He spoke about a new era of excellence. He spoke about the future of the Belmont Hotel. Then the generator tripped. The ballroom went black. For 11 seconds, no one could see anything. There was the sound of 140 people inhaling at once. A glass struck the marble floor and shattered. Someone near the back laughed nervously, then stopped. Phones came up in the dark. At second 12, emergency lighting came on. It was cold, flat, industrial light. Curtis stood at the podium with his speech unfinished, his champagne glass in one hand, his face pale under the backup fixtures. Behind him, the new logo disappeared into shadow. A reporter from the regional business paper lowered her phone and looked around the room differently than she had 10 minutes earlier. The event continued because Curtis insisted it continue. But something had changed. The next morning, photographs of the blackout were already moving through local accounts. One video showed Curtis at the podium just before the room went dark. Another caught the emergency lights coming on while guests stood among shattered glass and unfinished speeches. By breakfast, the regional business paper had changed the angle of the story it planned to publish. The Belmont's grand rebrand was no longer the whole subject. The reporter wanted to know why a hotel that had spent months promising a new standard of excellence had trapped guests in an elevator, lost kitchen refrigeration, and blacked out during its own launch event. Curtis spent the morning in a conference room with Priscilla, the branding consultant, the emergency electrical contractor, and a representative from the ownership group who joined by video call. "What exactly failed?" the representative asked. The contractor answered carefully. The backup generator tripped under load. It had not been load tested before the additional event lighting was connected. "Why not?" The contractor looked toward Curtis, then back at the screen. "My company was called in after several systems were already unstable. We were asked to keep the event moving. We did not have the time window we would normally require for a full test." The representative did not raise his voice. Who had responsibility for the normal test schedule? Nobody answered immediately. Priscilla did. "The former chief building engineer handled it," she said. "He was terminated 2 days before the event." Curtis looked at her. "This is not the time to make personnel commentary." "It is not commentary," Priscilla said. "It is the reason." The room became quiet. The representative asked to see the maintenance records. The official binder was delivered to the conference room. It contained dates, invoices, and standard inspection notes. It also contained a gap where the details of old systems should have been, because Sal had asked for time and support to build a proper knowledge transfer plan more than once, and management had treated that request as something that could wait. By noon, the ownership group had asked HR for Sal's personnel file, his performance reviews, and the circumstances of his termination. Curtis left the conference room and called Sal from his office. Sal watched the phone vibrate on the kitchen counter. He knew the number. He let it ring once, then answered. "Sal, it is Curtis. I know. I need to speak with you in person. You can send anything you need through HR. This is not a paperwork issue. It became one when you fired me." Curtis exhaled slowly. His voice had lost the polished certainty it had carried in the lobby. "We had a difficult event last night. I heard. We need your help understanding what happened. You have the official binder. You have the contractors. You have the same building you had when I was there yesterday. That is not fair." Sal looked toward the box of notebooks beside the dining room wall. "Fair was having a transition plan before you removed the person who knew the systems. Fair was asking what I did before you decided what I looked like." Curtis said nothing. "I offered to help under written terms," Sal continued. "You refused because the event mattered more than the work. I am not going to come back now and pretend the problem is a misunderstanding. Are you refusing to cooperate?" "I am refusing to be used for free labor after being publicly dismissed. The official files belong to the hotel. My private notes belong to me. If your HR department wants a formal transition proposal, they know where to send it." Curtis's voice tightened. "You are holding the hotel hostage over a grudge." "No," Sal said. "You are learning the cost of treating knowledge like it belongs to you, just because someone gave it to you every day." He ended the call before Curtis could turn the conversation into another argument. Later that afternoon, a former Belmont front desk worker named Marisol, now working at the Hartwell Inn 2 blocks away, stopped by the Hartwell owner's office with her phone open to the blackout video. "You should call Sal Marchetti," she told Gordon Reyes, "before someone else does." Gordon had known Sal by reputation for years. Anyone who owned an older hotel in the neighborhood knew the difference between the Belmont's maintenance costs before Sal's retirement rumors began and the costs afterward. He had watched delivery trucks, contractors, and equipment carts come and go across the street for years. He had never needed to meet Sal to understand that someone there was preventing expensive failures before they became visible. He called that evening. Sal almost ignored the number. Then the caller introduced himself. "Mr. Marchetti, I own the Hartwell Inn," Gordon said. "I heard what happened this week. I do not need you to explain it. I have watched enough from 2 blocks away." Sal sat up a little straighter. "I have been looking for a building engineer," Gordon continued. Not somebody to replace parts, somebody who knows when not to replace a part yet. I would like to buy you coffee tomorrow morning. Why? Because I have an old boiler, a stubborn freight lift, and a grandfather who taught my father that keeping a building working is cheaper than teaching the next person why it stopped. I think we should talk. The coffee shop between the two hotels opened at 6. Sal arrived 5 minutes early and found Gordon already there with a notebook on the table and 2 cups waiting. Gordon was not dressed like Curtis. He wore a flannel shirt, clean work boots, and a faded jacket that looked like it had been repaired more than once. He did not pretend the meeting was casual. "I will get straight to it," Gordon said. "The Hartwell has 41 rooms. We have no aspiration to become a luxury brand. We have repeat guests, old systems, and a staff that knows each other's birthdays. I need someone who can keep all 3 from being treated like they are disposable." He slid a folder across the table. The salary was higher than Sal expected. Not wildly higher, but clearly better than the Belmont had paid him. Beneath it was a retirement contribution plan, explained in simple language. "I spoke with my accountant," Gordon said. "I cannot rebuild the pension plan you were promised somewhere else. But I can make a supplemental contribution over the next 2 years that closes most of the gap. It will be written into your employment agreement, not offered as a handshake." Sal looked from the paper to Gordon. "Why would you do that for somebody you just met?" Gordon leaned back. "I am not doing you a favor, Sal. I am buying experience that my hotel needs. I am trying to be smart before my building teaches me the same lesson the Belmont learned after midnight." Sal touched the folder but did not open it right away. "I have private notebooks," he said. 34 years of observations. They are not magic. They are just details nobody thinks to write down until they matter. "I would want you to use them," Gordon said. "And I would want us to build a shared system around them. Not so I can replace you. So nobody has to lose you before they learn what you know." For the first time since the lobby, Sal felt something in his chest loosen. "When would you need me?" he asked. "Monday, realistically." "Yesterday, honestly." Sal smiled once. "Monday," he said. He signed the offer after reading every line. Curtis called again that afternoon. This time he did not begin with small talk. "Double your old salary," he said. "That is what I can offer. A facilities director title. Full authority over maintenance. I will personally cover the pension gap." Sal stood in the kitchen while Connie rinsed vegetables at the sink. She could hear Curtis's voice through the phone because he was speaking too loudly. "I accepted another position this morning," Sal said. Curtis fell silent. "At the Hartwell? They called me before you did. I can beat their offer." "I do not doubt that. Then what is this about?" Sal looked out the window at the small patch of garden Connie had started behind the house. "It is about being called before the disaster, not after it. It is about an owner who asked what I knew before he needed it. It is about not spending the last working years of my life waiting for you to decide I look useful again." Curtis's answer came more quietly. "I made a mistake. You made several," Sal said. "I hope you learn from one of them." He ended the call. At the Belmont, the ownership group's review became more serious. The elevator contractor provided a written statement explaining that the relay system had been modified years earlier after a recall, and that no one currently on staff understood the reason for the modification. The kitchen sent temperature photos and a list of discarded products. The event contractor documented that no full generator load test had been approved before the gala. Curtis tried, at first, to frame the weekend as a vendor failure. The ownership representative asked whether the generator contractor had been given enough time for a full load test. Curtis said the hotel had experienced an unusual series of equipment problems. "Unusual compared with what?" the representative asked. Curtis did not answer. The photographer from the rebrand shoot sent HR a short written confirmation when she was contacted. She had been hired to document the lobby that morning. Instead, She had watched Curtis dismiss Sal in front of guests after Sal finished repairing the fountain. Her invoice included the date and time. Her notes mentioned that Sal had been carrying tools and that Curtis had said the hotel needed a different image. No one treated the photographer as the central witness. She was not. But her account removed the last convenient version of the story, the version in which Sal had simply left or had been let go quietly for ordinary business reasons. Then HR reviewed Sal's records, 34 years of strong performance reviews. No disciplinary history. 2 written requests for a succession or transition plan. A recent email mentioning his pension vesting date and asking for clarity about his long-term position. And a termination that had happened in public, during a photo shoot, 2 days before the hotel's largest event of the year. The pattern did not look like a clean business decision. It looked like someone had wanted an old employee out of the picture. Priscilla was asked to give a statement. She did not make it dramatic. She described the fountain pump. She described Curtis saying Sal looked like something the hotel was trying to move past. She described the email Sal had sent months earlier asking to document the elevator modification and generator schedule with a second employee. Then she described the call she made to Sal after the elevator and freezer failed. "I offered to pay him out of my own pocket because I did not know what else to do," she said. "Did he refuse to help?" the ownership representative asked. "He refused to return without written terms," Priscilla said. "He told us where the official binder was. He told us how to request a formal transition. We chose not to do it. That mattered. It meant Sal had not abandoned the hotel. He had drawn a boundary after being publicly humiliated." An employment attorney met with Sal and Connie the following week. The attorney did not promise a victory. She did not use the word easy. She explained that every case depended on documents, timing, and what an employer could prove about its reasons. Then she read Sal's personnel file, the transition emails, and Priscilla's statement. "These are uncomfortable facts for them," she said, "especially together." Sal sat in silence for a while. "I do not want to spend the next year fighting," he said. "You may not have to," the attorney replied. "Sometimes a clear letter is enough to make people take a harder look at what they thought they could ignore." Sal authorized the letter. The ownership group responded within 3 weeks. The settlement was confidential. It covered the remaining pension gap and included a modest amount for the abrupt loss of employment. There was no speech. Curtis did not apologize in public. Sal did not need him to. Connie read the final document at the kitchen table, then placed it beside the old photograph she had taken from Sal's locker. "Does it feel better?" she asked. Sal considered that. "It feels finished," he said. Priscilla resigned from the Belmont before the end of the month. She had been offered a general manager position at a smaller hotel across town. During the interview, the owner asked what she thought was the biggest risk in operating an older property. Priscilla did not hesitate. "Thinking the old systems are the problem," she said. "Usually the real risk is deciding the people who understand them are replaceable." She got the job. Sal's first Monday at the Hartwell Inn began in the boiler room. The boiler was older than the one at the Belmont, and noisier in a way Sal liked. Old systems told you what they needed if you listened long enough. He knelt with his tools spread on a folded towel. He listened to the pressure build. Then he turned one valve a quarter turn. The rhythm changed. The pressure settled. Gordon appeared in the doorway holding 2 coffees. "Already fixing something?" he asked. "Already fixing something," Sal said. Gordon set one coffee on a shelf nearby. In his other hand was a new binder with a plain label on the front. "What is that?" Sal asked. "A maintenance system," Gordon said. "One that 2 people can understand at all times." He opened it. Inside were tabs for the boiler, elevator, kitchen equipment, generator, water systems, vendor contacts, inspection dates, and training notes. Every section had room for the reason behind a task. not only the date it was completed. "I want you to fill it in with me," Gordon said. "And I want the night manager to shadow you once a week. Not because I expect you to leave. Because I do not want another person in this building to become invisible until something fails." Sal looked at the empty pages. "That is the first time anybody has asked me to write the why down before the emergency," he said. "Then we are early." Over the next few weeks, Sal taught a young maintenance assistant named Eli how to listen to the boiler before looking at the gauge. He showed the front desk manager where the emergency elevator keys were stored and why the backup freezer needed a quarterly test even when nobody was using it. He copied the relevant pages from his private notebooks into the Hartwell binder, not as a handoff to replace himself, but as a way to make sure care could outlast any one person. At home, Connie noticed he no longer sat at the kitchen table staring at numbers after dinner. One evening, Angela called while her baby fussed in the background. "How is the new place?" she asked. "Good," Sal said. "Small place. Good people. Boiler needed a quarter turn. That is the whole story." Sal looked toward the shelf in the living room. His old notebook sat beside the new Hartwell binder. The two sets of pages looked different, but they belonged to the same life. "The rest belongs to somebody else's hotel," he said. Angela was quiet for a second. "You sound happy, Dad." Sal smiled. "I am," he said. "Quiet, and exactly the size it needs to be." And for the first time since Curtis Whitmore had looked at him in that lobby and decided he belonged to the past, Sal believed it.